Starting the meeting. So welcome everybody. This session is being recorded. It will be made available later. We're going to begin the session in approximately 2 minutes. That way we can give time for attendees to go ahead and join with as little amount of disruption as possible with the join notifications. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be the Copilot use cases for researchers. And as I said, we'll begin in about 1.5 minutes. During the session, and I'll repeat this once we get started, if you have questions, go ahead and post those in the Q&A. You can post those there. We'll be teeing questions up for the tail end after the presentation is there. And we see Randall has raised his hand. Excellent. Why don't you go ahead, Jim, you want to grab him and promote him presenter? So he's over in our queue.
Yep.
And yeah, we'll begin in about 1 minute. About 30 seconds more. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in today to Copilot for M365 Starter Series. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Copilot use cases for researchers. We're here. We have a great cast that are going to be presenting to you today. I'm going to be just kind of kicking today's session off. But before we get started, just to let everybody know, first of all, this meeting is being recorded. So you can be able to look at this later. If you look at the screen where you see aka.ms/HLS blog, that's aka.ms/HLS blog. After today's session, the recording, all resources mentioned, a PDF version of the slide deck, that'll all be posted up there and available for on-demand viewing. That's where you would go, as well as your colleagues that you would like to share this with. So keep that in mind. That'll be posted up at the blog, the recording. Also, during the session today, as we're having a lot of people still joining, if you have questions at any time, post those in the QA panel. You can post those questions up. Those will be teed up for the tail end of the presentation. So don't expect necessarily an immediate response, but those will be being viewed and captured so that those can be responded to by our presenters today. So let's go ahead and get kicking off. With today's session, you'll see that we have a number of speakers, Jim Warner, Nick Aquino, and Randall Ykema. I hope I'm going to let Randall, when he gets on and presenting, we'll let him go ahead and present his. This is the first time I've seen your name, Randall, your last name. And Randall, just so you know, you're on mute. But we're going to go ahead, and for today's agenda, it's going to look like this. We're going to be talking about, what is this Copilot use cases? What isn't it? When we talk about researchers, there's going to be a discussion and demo of the use cases, open QA, like I mentioned. We'll be teeing up all those questions you post in the QA section, and then next steps and resources. So very quickly, a couple of things. Number one, the age of Copilots has arrived. As you can see, we've been doing all these Copilot sessions. We have many more we're going to be teeing up after this series because Copilot is becoming insinuated everywhere in our everyday workflow. And when I say Copilot, there are many Copilots, right? Those assistants that at our behest perform actions to improve our productivity, help us to work smarter, faster, get more done with less available to us. And so Copilots in this whole age of AI, it is a rapidly evolving space. And at Microsoft, we're super excited about it and the potential it has to transform how we work. Couple of things as we get ready to kick off. As we look at researchers and the type of activities that they are doing, there's a couple of key points to keep in mind. So first of all, Copilot can assist you with generation of content around ideas. I know myself and Jim and others that are speaking today, we do this all the time, right? So even the post announcing this event was done using Copilot. I didn't type it up. I just asked it, Copilot, type a post for me. I did it in Word, copy and paste, and you saw the results. Saves time and effort, right, by handling repetitive tasks and busy work. So much of the time where we go and we have to look up and search for information, then we have to go through and peruse it. We have to capture the information we want, then synthesize it together, and it kind of cuts out all those middle steps for us, right? So that's, as a person looking up and researching information for my customers and others, huge time saving. And then the thing around it, integrating seamlessly with tools like Teams, SharePoint, what we call in the flow of work, that's crucial, so that it's just there to help us get our job done. Excuse me. All right, I was in the desert over the weekend, so desert cough. So first of all, what it's not, this is not an autopilot. So I have many people ask, well, it just do my job for me. No, that's a big NO, and that'll be hammered in as we go through today. It is really around helping. Everything that you're going to see is done at the user's behest. It truly is an assistant or co-pilot sitting alongside you, waiting for you to ask it to help you. And then it's also not a replacement of your judgment. And this is one of the biggest things that we harp on all the time. Every response you get back from Copilot, consider it your first draft or the final draft to be edited, reviewed, etc. But it really is a draft because ultimately everything that's produced has your name on it. Doesn't say Copilot, it says Jim Warner, it says Mike Giannotti, Nick Aquino. It says our name as if it was our work, or if you had an admin who did a lot of work for you and handed it to you, but then you go to present to the board of directors, who are they going to think did it? You, and you're on the hook. So keep that in mind. With that in mind, I'm going to turn over. I'm going to go in the background, and Jim Warner is going to kick off talking and showing use cases. So Jim, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, that was great. And it really, that last slide is so important, right? This is something you're going to want to double check the work. This is like a first draft kind of thing. This is really going to be important when we, talk about this, research use cases specifically here. So yeah, I'm going to cover some of the out-of-the-box functionality. I'm going to cover the top 3 use cases here that are being shown. So I'm going to generate content really in all 3 of these scenarios. So I'm going to do some PowerPoint, some Microsoft Forms, and something in Word. We're going to discuss about customizing the data sources, or the corpus of knowledge that you might want to ground your data in, and that'll kind of kick in after I do a couple demos. So, and we'll try to address any questions in the chat, but we're really hoping that we can address any questions that come up towards the end of the call. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to start with so in this scenario, I'm going to start with the Word demo. So what I want to do here is I want to take 2 reference files and I want to summarize them. So in this case, I have 2 protocol documents for some cancer treatment type protocol documents, and I want to summarize these documents and get that synthesis of information in these two different documents. So just to show you real quick, I got this is example of one of the sources. So I got this protocol document. You can see it's a couple pages here. That's for ABC. And they also have a protocol document for XYZ trial. So you can see here, this one's about the same, 2 pages. And so I have Word up, and I'm going to open up the Copilot prompt. And I'm going to ask it to summarize protocol documents. And I'm going to use the reference file. So I'm going to use a slash here, and you'll see it'll start pulling up my recent documents. In this case, I wanted to, I'm just going to start typing, and you can see it filters based on my documents. I'm going to put another reference file in here. I'm going to do the XYZ, these 2 protocol, and I'm going to generate. So this was taking a little bit long earlier, so I'm going to minimize that one and show you some of the end results. So what this does is it goes through and it really summarizes both of those documents. And you can see here what it produced was really a comparison and summary of those 2 documents. So I got a 2-pager based on the 2 documents. You can see here also that the 2 documents, the source documents, the ABC document and the XYZ document, those are both labeled already with sensitivity labels. So you can see that this document that was generated automatically inherits those that sensitivity label of the source documents. So I'm also going to show let's pull up forms. Alrighty. Okay, so you can see here I'm in Microsoft Forms, and what I'm going to do is in this particular demo, I'm going to create a cross-sectional survey. So this could be useful in gathering information for trials, for research, or whatever. So in this case, I'm going to create a new one. So I'm going to go into this form here, and you can see it comes up with a draft with Copilot by default. So in this case, I'm going to take some context, right? So I'm going to give it a goal and some context around what I want to accomplish here. So I'm going to create a cross-sectional for participants in a research program for new colon cancer treatment. The purpose of the study, right? So combination of drugs, radiation, and I'm going to put this in, and I'm going to go ahead and generate this. So this should create a cross-sectional survey, and this might take, I don't know, maybe take an hour of my time. It's really taking, a couple seconds here. You can see it's generated a list of a quick little survey here, what age, gender, and it has some other questions that would be relevant in this case. I can tweak this, right? So I can keep it, and then I can tweak these and delete questions, add questions. But you can see here, it's produced a quick little survey, a cross-sectional survey in a matter of seconds. All right. That's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to create a presentation from a research paper. So the idea here is again, all of this data is in my OneDrive for presentation purposes. It's out of the box. It's pulling information from my OneDrive, right? It's not pulling things from that I don't necessarily, that I don't have access to. So this doesn't elevate the permissions. This is accessing data that I have access to, whether it's SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive. And here I have a research paper out in my OneDrive. Let's go look at it real quick. Got my little research paper. It's 4 pages. You can see It's just, of course, this was generated with Copilot. But so I'm going to take one of the default prompts out of the box for PowerPoint. So I'm going to go ahead and click create a presentation from file. And I'm just going to fill in the blanks here. I'm going to actually do, you can see it's already put the slash in there, so I can start typing. And I can't find it. Of course. Let's try that again. Okay, so of course the demo gods are messing around with me, but I do have a backup here. I did run this right before the demo, just in case of something like this happening. So I created a presentation from the research document. Again, you see the sensitivity label is inherited from the source, so just have a general sensitivity label. But here's what it did, right? So create a presentation from the research paper.doc. It goes ahead and puts together an outline, and then it produces a draft. So here's the results. And you can see that from my 4-page document, it's created this great presentation, including speaker notes. You can see here that as I go through here, I get my title slide, I got, and you can see in the overview, it's pulling content, right? So from the original content, and it's giving me like a blurb, some notes, speaker notes for each one of the slides. It's also gone through and actually provided visuals, right? So it's actually putting graphics on here based on the subject matter, based on the gallery of stock images. And you can see here, just clicking through, I can see different models and frameworks, and this is all coming from the original content. So great way, this would have taken me at least, well, probably half a day to produce this based on another document, right? I got to open that other one. I got to look through it. I got to synthesize, I got to digest that data, and then I got to put it into a presentation with notes. This is a huge time saver. This ran in about a minute and a half earlier, right before the call. So those are the 3 main use cases that I was going to cover. I want to hand it off to Randall to talk about extending like the capabilities of where the what you're going to ground your data in. So I showed examples of transition, pulling this information out of things in M365, like I said, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams. But what if you wanted to, ground your data and your responses in a different corpus of knowledge? And Randall, can you speak to this a little bit?
I can. Let me share my screen. We'll dive into this. Hopefully you can hear me and see me okay, and see my screen. Great.
Yep, looks good.
All right, so I'm gonna introduce myself and teach y'all how to pronounce my last name. It's a little bit of a trick. It is Randall Ykema, so the Y is an I, and I am a technology specialist here at Microsoft, and I focus in on our power tools. No, we're not taking over the Snap-on or Craftsman industry. We have a set of tools called Power Platform. One of those is called Copilot Studio, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today, where we can expose the ability to, one, create your own custom copilots, as well as extend existing copilots. So I think, we all can, look at the future and say, hey, this is probably going to be conversational going forward, how we interact with our data, how we interact with our applications. And there was actually a Gartner report that it says, within 3 years, a third of all work experiences will be conversationally enabled. And as you might also be aware from all our different announcements, there's an entire Copilot system that's emerging around Microsoft Copilot. So we've been able to quickly put generative AI in the hands of our customers by leveraging our investments across our Microsoft Cloud, by packaging up our omni-channel capabilities, our Azure ML and AI capabilities from Azure Cognitive Services, and all the Power Platform connectivity and ease of use, and bundle that and roll that into Copilot Studio. And for the next little while, we're actually going to show that. I'm going to just go through 1 or 2 more slides here, and then I'm going to hand it off to Nick to kind of walk you through a couple of those use cases and how we can extend and create custom Copilots. Now, we've built our Copilots on top of the Copilot stack into our first-party solutions like Copilot for M365, which you just saw. And we're delivering those conversational experiences in Outlook to summarize those emails, or maybe those PowerPoint presentations to create custom documents and presentations for your different presentations. But what if we could take that data that resides elsewhere in our organization and unlock it and make it available to the use of your users in the context of the applications they are using every day? So when they're in Word, or they're in Teams, or they're in Outlook, being able to expose some of that back-end information. So maybe it's information from your sales systems, maybe it's information from your research systems, or maybe it's from an IT perspective, exposing some of that IT knowledge within the context of those applications. They don't have to leave the application that they're commonly working in to get access to that information or trigger those actions. Well, we can do that all with the extensibility of Copilot for M365 using Copilot Studio, and we can populate and hydrate that Copilot with other sources of data with our out-of-the-box connectors, like our sales, Copilot for sales, like in contact centers or in ITSM scenarios. And if you need to, say, embed that experience in a different application, like, say, ServiceNow or Salesforce or anything like that, you can do that with Copilot. And so we've built these first-party Copilots to give everyone a running start, and then from there you can extend and customize it further. And we've got all the tools for you to do that within Copilot Studio. So let me bring up the next set here and kind of walk you through what you have at your fingertips to get started there. So you can build your own bespoke Copilots. So you've seen the Copilot for M365, but you can build your own custom Copilot using Copilot Studio. And something that can create massive impact, and you'll see that here shortly, with just a few minutes of work. And we made it easy. We dropped the barriers of entry even lower than what they were before using AI. And you just have to be ready to step over that and come to the forefront with some use cases. So when we look at Copilot Studio, there's a couple different scenarios that you're going to look at doing. One is extending that Copilot for M365, where you want to take it and not only reason over the knowledge that it has access to, but maybe trigger additional actions. We call them plugins, where you can start asking AI additional questions, or you want to handle a request a very specific way. You can reach into those backend system and send those messages back to the user, or maybe you want to trigger a workflow to happen. You can do that by extending that Copilot for M365 with Copilot Studio. And then you can even take it further and say, you know what? I want to make sure that we are creating our own custom Copilot. We're handling the responses in a very specific manner. So I want to ask the questions, I want to get the responses, and then branch out in a very specific manner to handle those responses. And maybe I want to scope that very specific topic over a very specific set of documents in my generative AI response. I can do that using Copilot Studio. And then we can even take it further and say, you know what, we want to incorporate our own custom large language models into our responses and incorporate that into our Copilots. Well, Copilot Studio can loop in Azure AI Studio to be able to do that, as well as you have the ability to say, hey, we're going to hand this off to our pro devs and really go to town on creating a custom Copilot using our knowledge in our databases and backend systems and our custom large language models. We can actually extend Copilot Studio even further using Azure AI Studio. So some quick examples of custom Copilots. So maybe you have that employee assistant, that HR, that IT service desk, but we're going beyond just saying, hey, I got a support ticket and submitting that. So it's going beyond that extensibility. It's really a scenario of asking very specific questions, getting very specific input from the user in terms of submitting that ticket. Maybe it's a certain type of ticket and you need to ask very specific types of questions to fill it out in earnest. You can walk through that scenario with the user and get the response and submit the ticket that you need. I mentioned it a little bit ago where we're scoping the response to those questions. So one of the differences you'll see is that if you handle a topic in a certain way, you can say, hey, when I respond to this answer or this question, I want to make sure I'm getting responses or answers from generative AI using a very select subset of documents, as opposed to all the documents that I might have access to. So we can scope a very limited set of documents for a given topic and then handle the responses in a very specific manner. And then above and beyond that, we can publish our Copilot to any number of channels. So I'm no longer restricted to, say, Outlook or PowerPoint or Excel. I can now publish those custom Copilots to other channels, like I can still do it to Teams, but I can do it in email or a custom or external website. I can do it to my intranet sites. I can do it to Slack. I can do it to Twilio, any number of channels there that I want to make available to my users. I can then publish that custom Copilot to them and allow them to use it. So if we take a quick look at the value, and then we'll hand it off for some quick demonstrations here. As we look at the values of Copilot Studio, we're really looking at that experience to start, right? How can we extend those Copilots that exist, those first-party Copilots, to make them even do more? And then also, how do we create new Copilots that go above and beyond and really manage that conversation, that dialogue, those channels, the scope of the documents that we're providing generative responses over? I can do that all with Copilot Studio. And then I just touched on it a minute ago, as far as those channels, I can now make these Copilots available externally. So if I want to provide a Copilot to my end users outside my organization, I can do that by publishing it to an external website and making it available to them, as well as making more options for my internal users in terms of the channels that they can interact with my Copilot. And then lastly, how do I go about creating Copilots in my organization? Rather than relying on a specific set of highly skilled individuals, you can take advantage of the skill sets of everyone, of any maker, of any capability, to begin creating Copilots, whether it's just using natural language to create those Copilots or drag and drop capabilities within Copilot Studio, or using the extensibility options and really pulling in those pro devs to provide access to those APIs in the background, those data sets in the background, or those custom large language models. You can do all that with the same tool set in Copilot Studio. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Nick if there's no questions, and we'll dive into how we use Copilot Studio to extend Copilot for Microsoft 365, as well as create custom Copilots. Nick, you there?
I am here. Thank you, Randall. Appreciate that handoff. Let me just bring myself on the screen here. And there we go. Thank you, everybody. Apologize for the poor lighting. I'm in a quieter room, so I could make sure that I had limited distractions for this Copilot Starter Series. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to share my screen. So as Randall was talking, he was describing to you the extensibility of Copilot using Copilot Studio. So what I'm going to show you today is a couple of plugins that I've created, custom Copilot, and I'm going to show you how I can gather external information. So first, just to highlight the fact that when we're working with Copilot for Microsoft 365, it reasons over your data in the Microsoft Graph. So that's SharePoint sites, OneDrive sites, your emails, your chat conversations, meetings, and more. What it doesn't do is it doesn't go out to the internet. It's not just by the default options, it will not reach out to the internet for internet sources. So the large language models actually have a plethora of information that they've been foundationally trained on. So I can still ask questions within the Copilot of information that is somewhat relevant, so a few years old maybe. The Chat GPT 3.5, I believe, was trained all the way up to 2021. So it won't natively have information that is newer than 2021. So with that in mind, and the reason I express that is because, well, what if I want to pull in relevant information inside my Microsoft 365 Copilot ecosystem? And that's what Randall was talking about, bringing other corpuses of information into the knowledge set of Copilot so that the large language model can reason over that third-party data. So what I'm gonna pretend, and first and foremost, I am not a developer. I have some development background, just a little bit. And I'm definitely not a researcher. I am a IT professional. My experience is limited to technology as it pertains to information technology, not so much as it pertains to research or anything like that. So I'm just going to show you, I'm going to pretend to be a clinical researcher. And what I have here is I have my favorites. I frequently visit the National Library of Medicine to gather just random information about different medical trials, information in the industry, historical articles, information on various medical professional research things. So, as you can see here, we have different sources that I can visit, news and highlights, and there's a plethora of information on this website. It's buried pretty deep inside. So I want to bring this information from this website into my Copilot ecosystem. So I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to kind of show you how I've done it, because it's extremely easy. Again, I'm not a developer, but I am a Copilot champion here at Microsoft, so I love to tinker and play with this stuff. So I have the general Copilot here, and but first, what I'm going to show you is a custom Copilot. So custom Copilot, when you create it, it will show up in your apps. And I've created one called National Library of Medicine. So I can quickly add this chat bot, per se, that I've created with Copilot Studio to my teams. And so I can ask questions such as, let's see, what is the address for the National Library of Medicine? Now, I probably don't need this for my research role, but I just want to highlight the fact that it's able to go out, use the large language models, and actually grab third-party information from a particular website. So when I created this Copilot, the data source that I had given it was that National Library of Medicine website. So it's taken just a second. This is the first time I've added this, and you can see if I mouse over it, I have some information about it. The message here says that it's to help employees stay informed, productive, and connected. And give it a second here. I think Jim's demo gods have invaded mine because it's taken a little longer than it should here.
Yeah, sorry, Nick. It's my fault.
Yeah, and while I'm filling the empty air here, Copilot's not perfect. It does make mistakes, and it is really important to verify your information. We have a motto here at Microsoft that is trust but verify. So trust that Copilot is doing the right thing, but you definitely have to verify the information, because as Michael had mentioned earlier on, when you go to present this information, it's your work. It's not the work of Copilot. So let's just try this one again here. Let's put it back out, come back in. Oh, there we go. It finished, of course. So the address of the National Library of Medicine is 8600 Rockville Pike in Maryland. So pretty basic answer. I could have done a search on the internet for this. And it also gives me the reference right here. So let's just validate that information. Yep, contact us, took me right to the contact page. So this is great. So a couple other things that I want to show you just with this chatbot here so let's see, let's get a little bit more medical here. What are some opportunities So let's ask it, what are some opportunities and challenges related to using artificial intelligence in clinical trials? And I know this is probably a loaded question here, especially for the topic that we're on. But again, you can see that it's able to produce a pretty rich result, giving me some information. And because this chatbot is pointed to the National Library of Medicine, it's actually pulling all the reference information from that website. So it looks like we do have one reference here, as noted by the number 1. This is the same reference, so it's pulling it from a particular article. And we'll take a look at this article. Artificial intelligence applied to clinical trials, opportunities and challenges. So it's a fairly lengthy article here. A lot of information in this article. So it's a great reference to kind of summarize the information from the website and give it to me here. Now maybe this is all I needed. I just needed to highlight some challenges and opportunities so that I can work on my project that I'm working on. Or now that it's providing me a reference, I can actually go and dive deeper into that. So let's do another one here. what, let's see, are some publications related to RNA research? So because the website is so thick with data and information, there's a lot of medical publications on the site. And it's highlighted here, actually, the top 100 most cited papers in long coding RNAs. So let's take a look at that and see what it's produced for me. Again, the National Library is full of very, very long research papers. And it looks like this is probably that list, 100 most cited papers in long non-coding RNAs field. So again, it's produced a great result for me. Now, what if I want to reason over this information a little further? So what I'm going to show you here is, now I have to explain something here, is if I was in a single environment, I would click this and it would open up and I would have my Copilot sidebar here. I'm actually using two different environments here. I'm in an in-private browser, so my sidebar actually doesn't pop up. Now, let's just humor me for a moment and pretend that it popped open over here. So I've opened up the website and I'm reviewing it, and I realize it's a very, very long website. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use Copilot in Edge. Now, this is Copilot with commercial data protection. This is provided with the majority of the Microsoft 365 licensing SKUs. And so it's built into your existing license if you're already a Microsoft 365 customer. So what this allows me to do is I can actually review the page. So it's pretty basic stuff. Summarize the web page. Now it's going to go ahead and read through this web page and provide me a nice summary of information on the website. So I've used my Copilot, my custom Copilot that I've built with Copilot Studio. I've gathered some information and it's provided me some references to the particular articles and publications that I'm interested in. And now I've moved over to Copilot with commercial data protection in the browser to actually further reason over the specific articles. So now I'm outside of the Copilot Studio and I'm inside of Copilot for Web, which is a Copilot with commercial data protection. So it gives me a short summary of part one of the web page here. And of course, it gives me the reference information. There's always reference information when you're using the Copilots so that you can do that verification process that I mentioned earlier. So now what if I want to take this information on this web page and maybe I want to compose a short email or a blog post, or even create some bullet points of the website. So I'm using the compose feature here. What I'm going to show you is help me write an email to my boss suggesting we use some of the information. And I can spell wrong. It's okay. Copilot's pretty smart. Can use some of the information from this page in our research project. Now, again, it's just very simple, but I can make it a paragraph, a summary. I could create a report. I'm generating an email here, and I'm going to leave it professional. And I can also specify the size. So I'm going to use the medium length here. So we'll go ahead and kick off a draft and see what it comes up with here. So a couple things to note is I did not give it a lot of information. My prompt was pretty plain for the most part. Just generate an email and let my boss know that we want to include some of this information. So it doesn't know my boss's name. It doesn't know my name. So it's actually going to provide you with, in brackets, where you need to make some edits to this. So it says boss's name up here. When I did it earlier, it said something about the information pertains to our project, and it said project name in brackets. So it's guiding me to help fill in the blanks that it doesn't know about for this. So So I've shown you the Copilot chatbot, and I've showed you how it will take a reference, and you can click on that reference. It'll take you right to the web page. From there, you can use your Copilot with commercial data protection to reason over the information in that web page. And I'm sure you can come up with some better questions to ask the page than I did. A few other things that it can do is, and I don't have a great prompt for you right out to demo at this point, but I could ask it to list in bullets some of the search strategies listed on this page. I can ask it to create a comma delimited list. I can ask it to create a table. And in fact, I probably should have asked it to create a table so I could show you that when you do create a table, you actually get an Excel button here where it will open up that table right into Excel. So here's some bullet points, keywords, databases used. So let's try it out. Provide this in a table format. Now, it was pretty generic there. I expect it actually might complain to me. So that's moving along. And as you can see, it's now building a table for me. And it gives me this edit in Excel option. This is great because it'll actually open up Excel and put this table in there for you. So you can save a little bit of extra time instead of the copy and paste functionality and then removing the formatting and everything. It'll drop it in as it's written here. So let's go ahead and do that. Of course, it wasn't a very large table, so it's not going to be that great, but it does produce it in a pretty standard plain text format for me and inside the cell, so I can copy and paste this and use it wherever I might need to use it. So the next piece that I want to show you is actually how easy it is to create one of these copilots. So I'm going to create one from scratch. And, oh, just lost my. So I already have two copilots. We talked about the National Library of Medicine. I'm going to go ahead and create a new copilot here. And we're going to call this one the BLS website. So this is the Bureau of Labor Statistics website is what I'm going to provide here. And it is. So that's all there is to it for this page. Now, I'm going to avoid the advanced options just for the purposes of this demo. This is supposed to be a very simple, basic demo that most people can do. And this is all that I really had to do for my National Library of Medicine chatbot. Once it was set up, all I had to do was go ahead and publish it. And then that chatbot was available to me to add to my teams so that I can interact with it and get valuable insights from that website. Now, you can also use an internal SharePoint as your source of data. You can also upload documents to it. So maybe you have a handful of internal documents that highlight the various procedures that you use to perform your research, or some of the rules and regulations around some of the types of research that you might be working on. You could actually upload those documents to this chatbot and then be able to reason over that information and ask questions about it very easily, all while staying within Teams. So here it is. Hello, I'm a BLS website, a virtual assistant, and it has the option to add files here. I could also add additional generative AI sources. So there's going to be one more thing that I want to show you is the conversational plugins. So I could come over here and I could publish it. As you can see, I can configure the various channels that Randall had mentioned. For this demo, I've just published it to Teams because that's where I pretty much live and work most of my days. So it makes it really easy to manage that information. But I'm going to move over here to extending Copilot. Now, what I want to show you is what a conversational plugin is. So I'm going to go ahead and add a conversational plugin, and we'll close the test so we get a little more real estate here. So here, I'm going to give it provides answers and information regarding the BLS website to users answers are helpful and provide additional information regarding URLs and such. I'd probably spend a little bit more time building that. So what this is actually tells Copilot, it's using the natural language with the large language models to take my description and actually behind the scenes, it's building code to help build this Copilot out and behave in the way that I want it to. I could even, for matters of demonstration, I could provide it and say, and you speak with an accent like a pirate, right? And it will behave as such. I've actually done that before, but I don't have that one ready. That would be kind of fun. The only next piece to it to make this a conversational plugin is I call an action. I'm sorry, I go to advanced, I choose the generative answers. And over here, I select a value. So this is the input value. What I choose is the activity.text. So it's going to take the text that I type into the Copilot, and it's going to use that as the source of information. And then it's going to use this website as that grounding source. So all I have to do is save. Now, it can take up to 4 hours for this to publish for the first time. After that, changes that I make to it happen pretty quick. But just that very first time that I create the plugin and then go to publish it, it'll take up to 4 hours for that to show up. However, I do have a conversational plugin ready to demonstrate. Now, this one's a little more fun. I have the National Library of Medicine, but I'm actually also want to show you the experience over here. But I'm going to use a different plugin. This is one that my kids and I made. So it's a Minecraft wiki. So I went out to the minecraft.wiki site and I did exactly what I just showed you. I created a chatbot and then I added a conversational plugin to it. So when you add that conversational plugin and you publish your chatbot, you'll see that listed under Copilot Studio in this drop down of additional plugins that I can use. And so now I can ask Copilot without having to add a special bot, things like how to make a crafting table in Minecraft. Now imagine this is over your own custom internal website. How valuable this would be to just have it built into the existing Copilot experience to provide you with those generative natural language answers, reasoning over your own data or your own websites that you've curated for specific purposes. So right now it's looking over all of the available plugins that it has, the plugins that have been enabled to see first if there's a plugin that would be able to answer this question. So it's coming back with an answer on collecting wood, crafting the planks. And if you've used Minecraft, I'm sure you understand that some of these things can get pretty technical on how to create. Crafting table is probably the first thing that you would do in the game once you start building. So it's given us an answer here, natural language response, and it's referenced my Minecraft wiki plugin as that reference source. So it's grounding that data in my chatbot, my conversational plugin, and providing additional information there. One more, what is Redstone? Now, again, it should reason over that information. However, I have found that as I've been conversing with Copilot and using my Minecraft wiki, Copilot naturally has some information about Minecraft because it was trained on large sets of information, foundationally trained. So it actually has some Minecraft information built into it. I might not have had to create this. And so you can see that that's exactly where it came from. Since there's no reference, it's literally just the Copilot itself answering. So when you use a conversational plugin, it's going to bring additional data and information into the Copilot ecosystem, the knowledge base for Copilot. And when it needs to, it will tap into that plugin and provide that relevant information for you. So I hope these few examples have given you some things to chew on and think about and how you can apply it to your own research projects, or maybe in the general way that you do business. I'm going to pass it back to Jim to close us out for Q&A.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. We got quite a few questions in here. Let's see. All right, so where should we start? Can we summarize PDF files? It looks like that was one of the first ones a while back. So right now, no, we can't. I think that's coming soon. I don't have ETA on that, so that is
You can in
PDFs.
Copilot with commercial data protection. If you open your PDF in your browser, you'll be able to use the Copilot with commercial data protection to summarize that PDF. Assuming it's got text-based formatting in it, some PDFs are really just scanned in files. And so, Copilot can't do the OCR on it to read that data. So it's all up to the PDF at that point, but you can with the Copilot with commercial data protection.
And even that one it doesn't recognize, it doesn't analyze images, correct? I think that was another question out there.
Copilot with commercial data protection can do some image analysis. Now, if there's faces in it, there's some privacy protection where it's going to blur the faces before it analyzes it. I have had some images, some screen captures where I've asked it to provide me a table of the information inside the screen capture. It was like a screen capture in a Teams meeting of an Excel file. And it was able to for the most part, with high accuracy, reproduce that data. So it can analyze the images and provide you some of the text back from it.
Okay, cool. All right. Any advice on how to have Copilot rework the first output when the output is not to my expectation? Yeah, of course. So in those documents that I was generating earlier, you get a little prompt box at the end saying, hey, do you want to keep this? Do you want to delete it? Do you want to rerun it? Or you could actually give it further prompts at that point. So you can always iterate on your prompts, whether you're generating content, asking questions. So yes, you can definitely do that. You can also take, for example, output. If I did keep that, 2-3 pages that it produces, I can highlight text and say rewrite it with Copilot. So I can be very specific and rework just certain things that I don't like. Maybe it's a certain paragraph or a couple of sentences that I just need to be rewritten. You can do that as well. So there's a couple ways to do that. Documents we are referencing should be opened or only saved in OneDrive. So out of the box, M365 Copilot will recognize all your data in M365. So it can be in OneDrive, it can be in SharePoint, it could be in Teams, it could be in email, right? So those are all the base level sources that this information would be pulling from. And then, of course, we showed that it can be extended to be grounded in certain data sources. Can I add a link from the web on Word and ask Copilot to summarize it? So that is not available yet, unless some of my co-presenters have any other information on that.
No, Copilot natively is grounded in your graph data and does not have access to internet sources. And that's very specific design to maintain a separation of information and maintain the compliance within your organization, right? We don't want to be bringing data in unprotected, and we also don't want data going out unprotected. So the way I would achieve that would be to use a combination of your Copilot with commercial data protection to gather the information, and then or copy and paste and bring it into Word and start to work with it.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. We're going to have a Copilot icon available to use in the daily computer environment. I am not sure I understand the question.
I do. So I think you're asking about the custom Copilot keyboard key that's going to be, it's actually showing up on our latest Surface devices. The key, if you have a keyboard in front of you, like a full-size keyboard, probably to the right side of your space bar, 2 keys over, there's a little key with it looks like a menu. It looks like a right-click menu, and that's exactly what that key is. It's a right-click. If you have something there, you can press it and it'll pull up that right-click menu. That's going to be the Copilot key. Now, without the Copilot key, you can still access your Copilot. And this is Copilot in Windows that key is for. I believe it is Windows plus, maybe it's Control I. I'm sorry, I don't know the keyboard shortcut. It's I. I think it's Windows and I, or Windows Shift plus I. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay, cool. All right, let's see. Can I point Copilot at my laptop and shares included in my query? So by default, it's going to recognize things that are out on M365. Nick referenced, you can actually point Bing Chat Enterprise or Copilot into local documents and have it analyze that. But really, I think the idea is for information to be out in M365, and that way you can specify one or more documents for it to reason over in your prompts. All right, can Copilot review any written document if it is in Spanish? Yes, it can. So the supported languages right now are English, Spanish, Japanese, French, German, Portuguese, Italian, and Chinese simplified. So I could take a document, I can analyze it if it's in another language, Copilot will recognize that. I could even take an existing document and convert it into one of those languages. And we'll be rolling out a bunch more languages really starting really soon. Is there a difference how Copilot functions if I were to use MS Office in incognito / private mode versus regular web browser? So idea between incognito would be that you wouldn't have any credentials, right, that are passed. So it wouldn't really recognize what you have access to or the documents like your recents and the things that you have access to normally. So I don't think that would work very well in incognito or private mode. Alina asks, how do we create a custom Copilot? So Nick covered that very quickly. We'll provide additional follow-up documentation on that. Someone asked if the recording will be available. Of course, this recording will be posted out in the starter series, and it is in the chat, and we'll be posting that as well. But you can get a recording of this and all prior webinars that we've had around this in this series. Okay, can Copilot analyze my data for trends? Can it also analyze images and pictures? So Copilot for M365 is available in Excel, and it can analyze data for trends, absolutely. As far as analyzing images and pictures, Nick mentioned that earlier. So there are some capabilities there in Copilot with commercial data protection.
Yep.
All right, Jason, can Copilot summarize a list of references from a search in PubMed? Summarize a list of references from a search in PubMed. Oh, what do you think, Nick?
So there are some websites that lend themselves better to building a custom Copilot on top of. These are going to be websites that most of the information is visible on their public websites. I found when I tried to use a different website that was largely based on searching, so you'd have to first search for, say, the database, and then you click into the database and it would take you to another site. That's a challenge because that data is not, you have to actually interact with the search itself to retrieve the database information. So that type of a site won't lend itself well for a custom Copilot. And that's why I chose the Library of Medicine, because they had a lot of publications on their website. That's why I chose the Minecraft wiki, because it was all spelled out in plain text, a lot of the details. So it makes, ingesting that information for Copilot much easier and possible because Copilot's not going to go out and actually enter the search on the web page. It won't interact with the web page. So yeah, you do have to pick and choose the websites that you use. Some will work very, very well. Some won't be able to function because it's the functionality of the site is buried behind APIs. Now, for those types of things, getting the API, and now we're talking about a pro code solution. Everything I showed you was a no code solution. So getting into the pro code, that's when you would be able to build some of those APIs into your custom AI solutions using Power Platform, and then publish those as AI plugins to retrieve information from third-party data sources that may require some sort of search API. So it's not that it's not possible, but
yeah, I'm just going to tack onto that and say you could use a query in the API to return the results and then use all those results for you. So, but again, that's more pro code side because you need access to the API to do that query.
Okay. So is Copilot Studio available? So this would be so John, you have a question regarding your specific capabilities within
I answered that one in the comment itself. So yep. If you have Copilot for Microsoft 365, you do have access to utilize Copilot Studio to build custom Copilots. Now you'll be able to illustrated moving up from no code to pro code. Again, it's going to require some development aspects to it. Depending on what you do, you may need to enable the Power Platform, which has some additional licensing that might be required to utilize Power Platform. And then even further up the stack, building your own custom GPT solutions using Azure Studio has a different cost model associated to it. So everything you saw today is included with Copilot for Microsoft 365, building a custom Copilot to chat with, and then also adding those Copilot Studio plugins, those conversational plugins. Those are included with Copilot for M365.
Cool, great. I think, is that it?
There's a question there. Sometimes it seems Copilot's not referencing a document, and it should be. How can I check to see the scope has access to? There's not an official way, but my little tip here would be to open up your Microsoft Search and search for the document. So Copilot, when you're interacting with it, uses your corporate, your personal. When I say personal, I mean assigned to you, the user ID. You have your own search index inside your Microsoft tenant, and that search index is what Copilot will use to retrieve information during your interactions. So whatever you can see using your Microsoft Search, you should be able to access using Copilot as well.
Excellent. I think. So Christina looks like you have some problems accessing information. So yeah, all those should be available. You should be able to click on any one of the recordings, or the today will be posted shortly, probably later this afternoon. Any of the ones that happened in the past, you can click through to those from the blog site that Mike pinned up at the top of the conversation, and you can go in there and you can get the meeting recording. You can view the resources that we had available during all the sessions as well. And I think that's
the top of the list.
I think that's the top of the list. Yeah.
The last item, just to kind of throw it out there. So next week we'll be covering PMO use cases, so the project management offices or program management. So be sure to tune in for that. I'm putting a link directly to the consolidated post. And so if you come to this post, folks, you'll be able to see not only any of the sessions that we have delivered, but also the upcoming sessions, and grab those ones. We have 2 more in this series. But I just want to thank everybody for joining, and a special thanks to our speakers, Jim, Nicholas, and Randall, and to all those who asked a lot of great questions. Bid you have a great day, rest of your day, great week, and hope to see you. Have a great one, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.